right. We'll get a few more people logged in, and then we'll open up the floor if you have questions about the report, and then I'll pull up the sample and kind of walk you through that as well. So let's just wait about 2 more minutes, and then I'll open the floor for questions first, and then we'll go over the report, the sample that's on Blackboard, and yeah, hopefully we can get all your questions answered, due dates and all that stuff too. So yeah, so let's wait about another 2 minutes. All right. Yeah, for those of you who are here already, I'm sure there'll be some more people logging in the next few minutes. But do you have any questions for me before we talk about the sample report?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So for the lab report, it's going to be due the following Tuesday?
You mean like on what's today, the 2nd, on the 9th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's only because like you've already put it like well, you should have. I know you did, but I'm just saying in general, we already have a draft together with an introduction and references and all of that stuff. So now it's just a matter of building out the data section and putting the spectra in the appendix, and that's it. So the due date will be November the 9th. And then also I'm going to post the lab final tonight, but you'll have all the way until the 9th to take it. So you can take it anytime between now and November 9th. But I'll send out an announcement in reference to that. All right, other questions?
I just have one more. And then as far as the labsters,
Sure.
we're done with the labsters, right?
Yeah, we didn't have to assign as many because we were able to get through all of our experiments. So I think I might have, what did I assign, 3 or 4? So we'll just roll with that. And I'll put that in the announcement as well, because I know some people were just doing them, like working ahead or whatever. But I only assign, I think, 3. So we'll use what we have, and that'll be there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions? Any other questions about the lab report or about anything that we've done? I don't remember. That was one student reached out to me about not knowing about like handouts or whatever that everybody had or something they said. But I think it's been like everything has been pretty well laid out as far as like knowing what's due and when it's due. I haven't kept many secrets, so I'm not sure like what that's about, but hopefully you have submitted everything you needed to submit, and that way it makes it easier for all of us at the end of the semester. So let me go ahead and turn this. I can turn off something. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll show you the sample.
Dr. Russell, were there specific lapsers that we were supposed to do? Or is it just like 3 out of all of them that you sent?
No, any of time we had to do a lap deal was something that I assigned. I have to go back and look to see what specific ones I did assign, but all the lapsters were assigned lapsters. It's like I think I know chemistry introduction was one, lab safety was one. I think maybe nuclear files and electric files was one. But I'll have to go back and look because I really don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
So this is first of all, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Snap was the only thing is a cover page, obviously your name, the class, the course number, doesn't have to be fancy, title, synthesis of aspirin, or whatever you want to call it. And then in your introduction, this is like you telling the audience. Just imagine that you're writing this for your grandmother or your auntie or some like a non-science person. The introduction is where you're telling your audience about the compound that you made. So aspirin, obviously, there's no shortage of information on aspirin, right? How many tons are made every year? What's in it? What some you discover? That's the type of stuff you put into your introduction. All right, and your references, your reference information that pull from different sources. An assignment, you had to find 3 references about aspirin. One of them being you use those to build introduction, talk about the compound. And that's where you're going to put your references. And if you notice, zoom in on that. References are input numbers. So there's a little subscript outside the period. You see that little number 2, and then you go down to the bottom of the page. The references are in the footnotes. And that's on purpose because that's the ACS format. We talked about that when we did the draft, and I talked about it prior to you turning that in and prior to you looking up your references, that they needed to be in ACS format. And there's also, if you go to Blackboard in the assignments folder, where the references assignment is, there's also a link to a PDF with the ACS style guide that'll tell you how to format any reference. It can be a book, a website, a journal article, it doesn't matter. So that's really important. That's a big part of the rubric, the grading rubric, is whether or not you have references and whether or not they are in ACS format. So that's a huge part of that. So you need to make sure that you actually follow that procedure for how to cite the reference and how to format the reference and how to put in footnotes. Some of you, does everybody here know how to use that application in Word? How to add a footnote?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. All right, it's very simple. For those who may not know, when you're in Word, just click on the tab that says references, and there's another button in there that says add footnote. Click that, and it'll put a footnote down in the footer of the document, right? So you want to have that section, and then you want to have a generalized section on the synthesis of aspirin. I did ibuprofen in this sample on purpose because every year, never fails, somebody's going to turn in this document right back to me and not change anything. They get a zero. You want to have one section, excuse me, dealing with the synthesis of aspirin, just the overall synthesis, like how you made it. And then for the synthesis section, the experimental section, you want to have subsections, right? Because we did a lot of stuff to this aspirin. We recrystallized it. We took a melting point. We measured the pH. We did an iron chloride test. So all of those are subtopics underneath the synthesis topic, right? So you need to talk about the procedure for each one of those processes. Each process that we did, you can talk about it in the experimental section, right? So first thing we did after we made the aspirin was we purified it using recrystallization. So you want to talk about that. Then you want to talk about the other tests that we did, the purity testing, the melting point testing, the pH testing. And then you also want to have a section on NMR because we actually did, and the infrared, because we did both of those processes on our aspirin. We looked at the NMR when it took an NMR spectrum, and we also did an FTIR. So you can talk about those processes as well. All right. Any questions about the experimental part? All right. Then you want to. Then the next section is your data section. Right. This is very simple. we did on purpose. We did a excuse me. We did a data sheet that we filled out, and after every experiment we did, we put some data in that sheet. We filled in about the reagent table, about the molecular weight, and the number of moles, and the density, and all of that. So we have that. But then we also went back and we did percent yield. We did there was a section in that table for the iron chloride test. There was a section. The only place we didn't have a section for, but you can add that into your document, was the melting point. I don't think that I had a section in the document for the melting point, but you can add that in. So the data section, you can literally, if you kept that document as a Word document, copy it from the document that's on Blackboard, and then paste it into your report. And then if you filled it in by hand, you could just type the numbers back in. If you edited it electronically, then you can take that electronic part, copy and paste it right into your report, and you have your data section already built in, right? And then after the data section, after the experimental, then the data section, then that's when you'll have your discussion or your conclusion. And you can talk about in that section, like basically the overall outcome. We made aspirin in such and such percent yield. If there was some mistake that happened or something that got screwed up, you can talk about that. You can talk about the NMR. Basically, when we took the NMR spectrum, it was the aspirin was pure based on the NMR. There wasn't any salicylic acid left over. We couldn't detect it by NMR, so on and so forth. All of that can go into conclusions. And the only other thing that will be left is the appendix, and that's just a separate section. Just put the title and the spectrum that are in Blackboard that I uploaded based on what the data that we collected when we took the NMR and the infrared. and you're gonna take that and put it into the appendix, right? All of that information is already readily available to you. All right, questions about anything in the report?
The document that I saw on Blackboard for the NMR assignment,
Uh-huh.
it looked like it was like a PDF. I guess.
Yeah, so what you could do in that particular case, because I did upload everything, it made it easier to access because the file types that you don't have the software to process those files. But what you can do is take what's called a snipping tool. Like if you got a Mac or a PC.
I have a Mac. I know you're talking about like a screenshot.
Yeah, you can do a screenshot, or if you have a PC, there's a tool called a snipping tool where you can just drag the mouse the cursor across the screen and kind of capture whatever image is on the screen. But you can do that and then just crop it, save it as a picture, and just paste it in.
Okay, so I see you have like numbers like next to yours, so we can just like I guess label it in the footnotes section.
Yeah, no, I have a number there because these spectra came from a website.
Okay,
But
so
yeah, so
want
you don't have to cite those. No, you don't have to cite them if you take them from the data that we collected.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the citation is there because these spectra came from a SDBS database, so that's why I cited it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So for the NMR and IR, do we use all three samples or
Yes,
just pick one? Okay.
every spectra that was uploaded, because each spectra is different. Like for the NMR, we did crude and we did pure, and we did one crude and two pure samples. And then the FTIR, we did crude and then we did two pure samples. So you need to include all of them.
Okay.
And since the samples were combined, like we really only had 4 samples total. Like that data is going to be generalized for everybody. So everybody in the class is going to use that same data because we didn't have a chance, to come in and each group do their own NMR or their own infrared. So everybody has access to that data.
Okay, another thing, so for the NMR part, I guess the results of it, where would we put that in the conclusion, or where would we put that in the that section of the experimental section?
What? Wait a minute. You're asking about the NMR, like as far as like the procedure for how to do it?
More, I guess, the analysis or what it means.
Oh yeah. So you can talk about that in the conclusion.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you're right. When you compare the spectra for the crude and the pure, and you saw that they were different, and the crude still had salicylic acid left over. Yes, you'll talk about that in the conclusion.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions about anything pertaining to the lab report? And again,
Can you explain? Could you explain what goes in the I mean, where to find what goes in the appendix again? You kind of cut off.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll show you if you can still see my screen. Let me make sure. Let me find the folder where it is, and I'll show you. It's in course documents. Make sure. I'm trying to remember if I put it here.
I think you put it in weekly experiments.
It's in the assignments folder.
The weekly experiments on it.
Sorry about that. But not remember where I put it. No, it's not there. Let me back out of that. I think it's in the assignments folder. Hold on. Let me double check. Yeah, it's here. So in the assignments folder, we have the infrared and the NMRs for everything, for all three samples. And the one that says Zoom, we open that up. That's just it's a zoomed in section of the NMR. See if I can open that. Yeah, so it's just a zoomed in section of the aromatic of the NMR.
And we're just copying that and
But
putting
you
it
can find
in.
all into the appendix, but make sure you label it. And that's why I have all of these labeled like that: sample 1, sample 2, sample 3. That's important because each spectra is different, and each spectra corresponds to a specific sample. But it's here and there. It's in the assignments folder under this link right here in our spectrum for lab.
Okay, thank you.
You should be able to. We should be able to tell like which one is the crew one just based off of how it looks. Correct.
Yeah, I think that the let me see.
When is the lab report due?
It's I think just look at it. I'm not certain what happened. Maybe I hit a bad area or a bad spot. Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me go back to yes, at the top spectrum is labeled up top. See where up here where it says CHEM 322-1 with impurities. So this is one of the purified samples, but it wasn't completely pure. So all of the NMRs are labeled like this. So you just need to make sure you capture whatever you capture. Just make sure that that's shown, because it does matter because all the samples are different.
Okay, I think I got confused because I was looking at the infrared. Okay.
Yeah,
But
but
the-
yeah, and the infrared is the infrared. Each one of them has a different title, a file name.
Okay. But they're gonna match up with based off of the sample number.
Yeah.
I think. Okay.
When is the lab report due?
So the report itself is going to be due on the 9th, which is next Tuesday. I'll extend it out to 11:59. I know it's, getting crunch
You're
time for
breaking up.
finals and all that. Am I breaking up again? Come on, bro. What about now? Can you hear me now? Yeah, I'm not
Yes.
sure why this. Yeah, I'm not sure why this signal's going in and out. But anyway, the report is gonna be due on the 9th, and then I'm gonna open up the final tonight and leave that open until the 9th also. But I'm gonna send out a announcement with all of the information in it about due dates and all that stuff. Because
Okay.
you should really be halfway done with that report because you've already written the introduction. And I'm going to grade those tonight and get it back to you so you can get feedback and know what you need to fix and stuff like that. That way you'll have that feedback while you're finishing up your report between now and next week. All right, other questions? I apologize for the reception issues. So no other questions about anything. Everybody's,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the spectra, it goes under the appendix or the conclusion or the results?
No, it goes into the appendix.
The appendix, okay.
Yeah, so you'll just have a separate page. You'll label it at the top, label it appendix. And then underneath that, where it's labeled, you'll paste in your spectrum. And
Okay.
make sure that each spectrum is labeled according to what it is. But when you open them in Blackboard, you'll see at the top that the title will be up there. So if when you screenshot it, and you just make sure you capture the title and you're good.
Okay.
All right. Other questions?
So all of the figures dealing with
Yes.
the NMR and the IR, they all go into the appendix?
Yes. Yep. All of them. You're gonna put every spectrum in there, including the ones that are zoomed in. You want all of it, everything. And I'm glad you mentioned that about figures too, because I want to make certain that you know that part of the rubric is including structures. So if you go to the data sheet, there's also if you use it in Word, the reaction scheme, you can actually use that. You can right click on it, copy it, and paste it somewhere in your document because that's part of the rubric. That's part of your grade. I'm not going to ask you at this point to try to learn how to build structures in ChemDraw or ACD labs or something like that because you don't really have time to fool. It took me a long time to learn it, and when I was a grad student, so I'm not expecting you to do that. So I gave you the reaction scheme. Feel free to grab it, paste it. Also, if you want to Google the reaction scheme for the synthesis of aspirin, you can do that too. But you need structures in your report. And you need to make sure, let me go back to the report that we were looking at. Hold up, because I want to point out one other thing too. You want to make sure that whatever you put in the report is labeled, right? Notice I have a structure right here and it's labeled as figure 1, right? And then whatever is figure 1, every figure after that is figure 2. If it's a reaction, then this is not labeled, but there should be a reaction. It should be scheme 1. So a figure is like a picture of a structure or something like that. But then a scheme is like a reaction where you're showing A plus B go into some product, right? So you want to label, you want to make sure that those are labeled also. I think in the other sample, everything is labeled, but in this one is not. Let me look at and see what the other sample looks like. Pull it back up in Blackboard. 1 second. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you have all that information included. Let's see. I think it's this one. Let me just open it right quick. It would not be labeled here also. But yeah, so if you have something like this, that's a reaction, you want to call that a scheme. So if you got one reaction in there, then it's scheme 1. If you have to put another one in, it's scheme 2. Another one in, it will just follow that numerical order. If it's just a picture of, again, like a structure like this, then that's a figure. So that would be figure 1. And then every figure after that, you just follow it in numerical order from figure 1 all the way down to figure whatever. But you want to make sure that those are labeled too, right? So anything you paste in other than the spectra, because the spectra going to the appendix, you don't have to label those. But anything you, well, let me not say you don't have to label it. You don't have to call them figures or schemes. But anything you paste into your document, you need to call it either a figure or a scheme with a number. And then you'll follow whatever that number is for every subsequent thing that you post in. All right. Are y'all following that?
Yes, sir. You mentioned a rubric. Was there one available on Blackboard? I was looking for it.
I don't think it's available on Blackboard, but what I can do is I can just make a PDF of it and post it, and post it in the link where you're gonna turn in your report. I'll do that. But I can, I know what's on the rubric off the top of my head is the references. That's about 30 points out of the total lab report. So the references, the structures, that's the title page, the appendix, which is the spectra, that's about another 30 points. And then the overall like format of the report. Like I'm not really grading it for grammar, even though you don't want to turn in like some kindergarten grammar, don't do that. But I'm not grading it for typos and things like that because I don't expect that to be the issue. I'm grading it more for technical proficiency as far as like how you put the report together.
Okay.
So yeah, but you don't want to turn it in just riddled with typos. So don't do that because that's, I mean, you do have to represent yourself in that sense that this is my work and you want to turn in something that you can be proud of. But on the flip side of it, I'm not grading it for English. I'm grading it for technical proficiency. Like I'm grading it like the conclusion. You know, or if you don't say anything about what was in the NMR, then taking the NMR was pointless, right? So you want to make sure you mention that. You want to make sure that you mention whether or not the melting point matched up with what's reported, you know, which is a testament to how pure your aspirin was. You follow what I'm saying? So all those types of things, you know, you want to make sure that when we were doing those experiments, we weren't just doing them for our health. We were doing them to confirm that we had, you know, indeed made aspirin. All right, so you want to make sure, be aware of that as you're putting this together.
Okay, and then I know you mentioned before, like we have footnotes for our references, but is there like a page at the end that has like all
No.
of them?
So you don't need a works cited page.
Okay.
Yeah, if you put in the footnotes, then there's no need for a works cited page.
Got it. Mhm.
And I will be honest, ACS has kind of gravitated away from the footnotes towards a bibliography, but that's only been in the last several years. For decades, they have done the footnotes. That's what I was trained in, so we're gonna leave the footnotes as is. But no, you don't need a works cited page. All right. Other questions about anything? So hopefully everybody feels a little bit more confident about the report and turning it in and getting a good grade on it than you did beforehand. And again, I'm going to take some time and go through your drafts that you submitted, and I'll leave comments on the drafts and send it back to you so you'll know what to fix. And if you have questions in the meantime, by all means, just reach out, send an email, however you want to do it, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Somebody, I think you're driving. Somebody asked in the chat, could you upload this Zoom meeting?
Say that again.
I think
I can
somebody
see
put
the
in the
chat. Hold on. I can pull it up. Give me 1 second. Oh yeah, I will. Yeah, I have to pull it from the cloud because it's recorded to the cloud. But yeah, I'll upload it. I think I'm gonna have to combine this part with the other part because it did go out once. But the good thing is that both recordings will be saved, so I'll just merge it and then I'll upload it. All right. Any other questions about anything? All right. If a question comes up, just shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Professor Russell,
Yes.
do you mind just I don't know if you did already, but can you just like send an announcement of the due dates for everything whenever you get the chance?
No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not doing that. That's too much work. No, I'm joking. I'm
Thank you.
gonna send a whole summary out of our meeting. So yeah, I'll send that out shortly. It won't be like within the next 5 or 10 minutes, but when I get settled and get to my computer, I definitely will send it. All right. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. Well, I'm gonna end the meeting and then I'll post the recordings and send out the announcement as soon as I get, to a place where I can do that.
Okay, have a nice one.
Have a nice
All
one.
right, y'all.
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
Take care.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.